A new president elected at the University of Indianapolis. She spoke on campus today.
We have the latest on the meeting between China and Russia.
An update on North Korea in regards to its nuclear missile program.
Sports fans, it's March and we have plenty about the madness.
UINDY swim and dive team achieved a massive. We have the details.
From the campus of the University of Indianapolis, this is UINDY TV News.
This morning, UINDY held a conference to announce the new president-elect, Dr. Tanuja Singh. At the conference, she shared a bit about her plans for the university.
Education to me is truly transformative. You know, you heard in the video, it changes lives. My biggest joy as an educator my whole life has been when students walk up to me and say, you know, I took that class from you X number of years ago, and it made a difference in my life. And occasionally they remind me that in my class, that was the only class they wanted to be in that they still like me. But they always tell me that that experience is transformative. So I think of education as not just a job, but really my calling. And I know it sounds cliche, and I hope that as you get to know me, you will find that these words indeed are true. I also know one of the reasons I chose UINDY was that there is a sense of purpose. You know, yes, we want you to succeed. Yes, we want you to get great jobs. But most of all, we want our students to make a difference in the world they live in.
Dr. Singh will officially resume the role of president on July 1st.
A first veto was announced by the current president of the United States, Joe Biden. The veto was issued last Tuesday and was based on a measure Republicans pushed through the office. According to CNN, the measure vetoed would have entirely restricted retirement fund managers from considering social and governance aspects when deciding on which investment is best for their client. As of now, there is no restrictions on these funds. The Republicans even had the measure passed through the Senate with a majority of the vetoes. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden states that the considerations these funds managers are making for their clients helps the clients see things more clearly on their investments. Those who support the president's decision state that the managers only make considerations. It does not force them to use them.
Former President Donald Trump is on the hot seat as he awaits a possible indictment from a Manhattan grand jury. In a post to the Truth social media platform, former President Donald Trump said he expects to be arrested. This current investigation is looking into Trump and his potential involvement in an alleged hush money scheme involving payments made back in 2016. These payments were made by his former attorney Michael Cohen to an adult film actress Stormy Daniels. If indicted, Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg would become the first prosecutor to ever indict a U.S. president. While there is no official word from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, grand jury proceedings are wrapping up. Authorities on all levels are now preparing for the possibility of protests after Trump told his followers to protest and take our nation back. Coming up next, Xi Jinping will meet Putin and other world leaders.
Most people wouldn't hitch a ride with a stranger. Sometimes convenience comes at a price, but the cost should never be your safety. What do you know about your driver? Do you trust him to get you home safely? Do you trust him with your life? 91% of Americans believe that there should be mandatory rules and regulations for drivers of ride-hailing apps. Know your rights. Make the right call when it comes to your safety. 83% of Americans believe that drivers of ride-hailing apps should undergo criminal background checks and should have to pass regular drug testing. All drivers should be properly screened, licensed, and trained. Don't put your safety, your privacy, or your life at risk. Inform yourself about the hazards of digital hitchhiking. Arm yourself with the necessary tools to ride responsibly. Do your research and think before you act. Visit rideresponsibly.org.
Someone had fun today. Hey, sweetheart, everything okay?
Yeah, everything's fine. How's our little guy doing?
We had a lot of fun.
Looks like I'm stuck working late tonight.
Oh, that's okay. I've got a laundry list of emails to send out.
Did he finally go down the slide?
He did great.
Hi, I'm Greg Grunberg, and there are a lot of things that we could talk about. But there's only one thing that we need to talk about, and that's epilepsy, which is more common than you think. My son lives with epilepsy, just like nearly 3 million Americans, 1/3 of which have uncontrolled seizures. Epilepsy is very misunderstood. Many people living with epilepsy and seizures, they feel isolated and alone, and this has to change. Let's talk about it together. Please learn more by visiting the Epilepsy Foundation at epilepsy.com.
Chinese leader Xi Jinping is in Russia for a state visit with President Vladimir Putin. It's his first time in Moscow since Russia invaded Ukraine more than a year ago. China is calling the trip a joy of friendship, cooperation, and peace. The first day of the visit appears to be emphasizing that, with Xi calling Putin his dear friend and Putin praising China's advances. The Kremlin says the two want to strengthen relations and discuss the war in Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken doesn't appear to be buying the peace is a goal of the visit. He points out the trip is happening days after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Putin. The U.S. is watching for any signs China could provide military aid to Russia. There might be more meetings in the future.
Stay the course or take a purse? That's the question the Federal Reserve will ponder as it makes its next decision on rate hikes.
The Federal Reserve sees inflation easing, but a shaky banking sector, making their decision on interest rates more complicated.
I think what matters is, can they stabilize the banking system so they can free up their ability to tackle inflation?
Since last March, the Fed has pushed interest rates higher to make borrowing more expensive and cool spending. Annual inflation was down to 6% in February from a 40-year high of 9.1% last June. The Fed's target inflation rate is 2%. The labor market remains strong, keeping labor costs high for companies. So these economic indicators would typically point to another rate increase Wednesday.
Taken in isolation, I mean, the economy looks very, very good right now. And yes, the Fed would probably be raising rates by 25 basis points without what's going on right now. That said, what's going on right now is very unsettling.
But the Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank collapses raise questions about what banks can handle, with higher interest rates pushing down the value of bonds they purchased when rates were low. Professor Valentina Bruno of American University says the Fed has little room for miscalculation.
If the Fed hit the brakes too hard, it could be the beginning of a slowdown or even worse, a painful recession. And if the Fed hit the brakes too little, then inflation may go out of control.
The recent rate hikes put pressure on consumers from both sides, still facing high inflation at the grocery store and elsewhere, while paying more in credit card interest on mortgages and auto loans. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
The continuous rise of inflation has Americans worried. We will keep you updated on any decisions from the Federal Reserve.
North Korea is starting to ramp up its nuclear deterrence program. North Korean's leader Kim Jong-un said that North Korea should be ready to conduct nuclear attacks at any time to deter war, according to state media KCNA. North Korea held a 2-day nuclear counterattack drill over the weekend in hopes that the country will be able to strike back if attacked. Leader Kim Jong-un has accused the U.S. and South Korea of being more aggressive for holding military drills with U.S. nuclear assets. It is important to note that North Korea has been tooling around with a nuclear arsenal since at least 2006, when it tested its first nuclear bomb. They have yet to test a bomb since 2017.
On February 13th, 2023, a gunman shot and killed 3 students and injured 5 others at Michigan State University. This past Sunday, the students at the university hosted a walkout where students were able to share their feelings regarding the tragic event. On the day of the shooting, all of the students at MSU received an email saying run, hide, and fight. One freshman in particular, Gillen Robbins, received the same email as the rest of the students, but right after reading the email, she heard a second round of gunshots coming from the MSU Union. Ever since that day, February 13th, Robbins has not been able to come out of her dorm. But now, thanks to this walkout, she has came out of her dorm and shared her thoughts and feelings about what happened and how it made her feel. During Robbins' speech in the walkout, she said, "Honestly, what really drew me here was a note card thing. I think I've been kind of realizing that keeping it all in is not very healthy. So I think writing it down is a really helpful coping mechanism for me. So I think this was a really great opportunity to do that." MSU student Logan Deal said that the campus has started feeling more back to normal after spring break and after this walkout. More later, March Madness coming up next, and a lot of madness to talk about. This is UINDY TV. Man, we gotta take Bryce Young, right?
What did you say?
No, it's Bryce Young. It's obviously Bryce Young.
C.J. Stroud, the obvious pick for Steichen and the Colts.
Ohio State quarterbacks, we know they don't.
I mean, come on, he's got the whole offense handed to him. Check out Last Call. We've got all the sports info you need from around the nation and right here on campus. Plenty of UINDY sports.
College football and college basketball.
The NFL.
The NBA.
MLB.
Don't forget about motorsports.
And I'll give you all the gambling picks you need to know to make some money right here on Last Call, Mondays at 4 o'clock on YouTube.
Hey, it's Giselle here on 88.7 WICR.
88.7 The Diamond, the only jazz and classical station in Indianapolis, completely led by the students of the University of Indianapolis. Listen to us on iHeartRadio, TuneIn app, FM radio, HD radios, or even on our website at wicronline.org, a different kind of public radio.
Brackets are being busted all over the nation after 4 full days of basketball last Thursday through Sunday. This year's NCAA tournament is now down to just 16 teams. In the South region, it will be the #1 overall seed, the Alabama Crimson Tide, squaring off with San Diego State. And a 15 seed has made it into the second weekend for the second straight year. Princeton will take on the 6-seeded Creighton Blue Jays. In the Midwest, the only other 1 seed left, Houston, is looking for their 3rd straight Elite 8 appearance, and the Cougars will battle with the 5th-seeded Miami Hurricanes. After that, the Big 12 champions, the Texas Longhorns, will play Xavier. Moving down to the West, Arkansas knocked off the defending champs, will play the Huskies of UConn. Then the rubber match, a rematch of a Final Four game 2 years ago, UCLA and Gonzaga will battle it out with an Elite 8 spot on the horizon. Lastly, the East region with maybe the best chance at a Cinderella team making the Final Four. Tom Izzo has got a Michigan State in the Sweet 16 for the 17th time, and the Spartans will take on maybe the new favorite in the region, the Kansas State Wildcats. Then 9-seeded Florida Atlantic will play Tennessee.
A lot of exciting games coming up in the Sweet 16. All those games will tip off this Thursday and Friday, and the Elite 8 to follow Saturday and Sunday. The Indiana Pacers hit the road last night to begin their 4-game road trip. They traveled to Charlotte to take on an Eastern Conference foe and the struggling Hornets. The Pacers, who are still squarely and content for a spot in the Eastern Conference play-in tournament, were looking to get a win to boost their chances. They started out exactly the way they wanted, getting out in front 40-22 at the end of the first, led by Miles Turner's 15 first-quarter points. However, the Hornets battled their way back into the game, cutting the lead down to just 8 points at the halftime break, using a 15-4 run late in the quarter. The Hornets kept chipping away at the Indiana's lead and got it down to only 3 points, heading to the final frame in Charlotte. The Pacers once again made it a 9-point lead with 15 minutes to go, but the Hornets once again came back and got their first lead just 2 minutes later. The Hornets never lost the lead after gaining it and closed out the win by a score of 115-109. The Pacers continued their road trip on Wednesday against the Toronto Raptors.
After a long and turbulent week, long competition, the UINDY men and the Nova Southeastern women have been crowned the NCAA D2 Swim and Dive champions for 2023. The championship competition was held from March 7th to March 11th, beginning with the women and men's 800 freestyle relay. After the second day of competition, a path to victory was being carved by the UINDY men and Nova Southeastern's women, as both teams had a healthy lead over their competitors. The meet saw numerous NCAA records fall, with one notably coming from UINDY's Joanna Baez in the women's 50-yard freestyle. A continued congratulations to Cedric Blessing, Juliu Asuna Kelly, Joanna Baez, and Katie McCoy, the relay teams who took home their first place finishes. On the men's side of things, UINDY scored 527 points ahead of a runner-up Drury with 450.5. For the women's Nova Southeastern, they earned 536.5 points, just ahead of UINDY's 488.5. This was the first national swim and dive title for both Nova Southeastern and UINDY, as well as the first national title across any sport for the UINDY men. A great ending to an amazing season for the Greyhounds. And it's still spring break in Miami. We'll talk about that later on UINDY TV.
Are you feeling alone in your faith? UINDY Catholic gives you an opportunity to get involved in a religious community on campus, providing sacramental needs and fellowship for prospective students and giving you a sense of belonging.
We just want you guys to know that God loves you, He delights in you, and He's in awe of you, and we would love to meet you. So you should come on out.
UINDY Catholic, a community for you.
For children who may have high-functioning autism, may have ADHD, processing challenges, working memory issues, sensory integration issues, those types of challenges. It's a place where human beings are valued, children are respected. It's a progressive school that takes a hands-on approach to education.
Man, we gotta take Bryce Young, right?
What did you say?
No, it's Bryce Young. It's obviously Bryce Young.
C.J. Stroud, the obvious pick for Steichen and the Colts.
Ohio State quarterbacks, we know they don't
I mean,
win.
come on, he's got the whole offense handed to him. Check out Last Call. We've got all the sports info you need from around the nation and right here on campus, plenty of UINDY sports.
College football and college basketball.
The NFL.
The NBA.
MLB.
Don't forget about motorsports.
And I'll give you all the gambling picks you need to know to make some money right here on Last Call, Mondays at 4 o'clock on YouTube.
More than 500,000 children on the West Coast will not be attending school today or the 2 days after either. In Los Angeles, California, it is estimated that over 1,000 schools in the second largest district in the nation will be completely empty for the next 3 days due to a strike called by the Union of School Workers. The union includes workers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, special ed assistants, and custodians, most of which who receive wages that keep them at or below the poverty line. The strike is advocating for higher wages for all of these positions, teachers included, as well as trying to raise awareness for everyone working in education to receive, quote, respectful treatment. Many have said that this strike is long overdue, and teachers across the country have continuously advocated for higher pay and an increasingly difficult and decreasingly fulfilling field of work. The union estimated that of its 30,000 or so measures, 96% voted in favor of the strike, an overwhelming number that is sure to turn some heads and inspire some change.
Damning reviews have accused the London's Metropolitan Police of predatory behavior to flourish with the force. Britain's largest police force has dealt with a series of scandals in recent years. In March 2021, an officer of Metropolitan Officer was convicted of kidnapping, rape, and murder of a 33-year-old London woman. One day after the sentence of the officer, another serving officer was arrested and accused of rape. The Met has not protected its female employees or members of the public from police perpetrators of domestic abuse, nor those who abuse their position for sexual purposes. Police Commissioner Mark Rowley said in a video statement on Tuesday that the force fully accepts the review's finding and intends to act on them.
After violence in Miami Beach over the weekend, the city hopes to keep the peace for the rest of the spring break season. In the wake of 2 fatal shootings, the City Council chose not to impose a city curfew for the upcoming weekend.
Miami Beach commissioners voted not to impose another curfew this upcoming weekend after last weekend's violence.
We have a real problem with the number of people that are coming and the guns that are coming.
The city manager issued a state of emergency and a midnight curfew on Sunday after two separate deadly shootings and, quote, excessively large and unruly crowds flooded the city.
Declarations themselves are hugely impactful to those of us who run businesses here. My clientele, primarily an international crowd, I'm going to have to give them a refund, and it hurts.
The commission debated extending the curfew this weekend.
These aren't spring breakers, they're lawbreakers who don't respect police, they don't respect law, they don't respect innocent lives. And I need to follow the recommendation of our law enforcement when they tell me that they need this emergency order to protect our city.
This whole notion of, we got to do something. We did this crap during COVID, right? I mean, let's be real. If it's not going to make a difference, don't punish the businesses that are going to be affected by this and their employees.
Some commissioners argued that it's usually the third weekend of spring break that sees the most violence and that it was unfair to punish the crowds this weekend. In the end, they voted to have liquor stores close at 6 p.m. The city is also preparing to deal with crowds from two major music festivals this weekend. Speaking to vacation goers, some admitted that they were out past curfew.
I make sure that my surroundings are safe. I'm with a friend at least, a best friend, a close friend, and my phone is always charged.
But you broke curfew.
I didn't know there's a curfew.
Some tourists said they felt safe in Miami Beach despite the recent shootings.
I think that I feel safer here than in my country, so I'm not that worried. Of course that later in the night we are going to the hotel, not staying in the street, but we don't feel unsafe here.
I think if you play it safe and you just do what you're supposed to do and just be mindful of your area around you, you're fine.
This all comes a year after the city of Miami Beach similarly imposed a midnight curfew last year after two spring break shootings.
The United States will drastically increase the speed that they send Ukraine tanks to as early as fall this year. The U.S. has changed their plans so they can accelerate the time it will take to send Ukraine tanks by sending older models until they can send out the Abrams tanks they promised. The process will likely be over by fall and will greatly aid Ukraine in their efforts to spring an attack on Russian forces this spring season. Ukrainian forces want to launch an attack using most of the advanced armory that the Western nation have sent, and this jump in production will assure they do have the firepower to do so. It will be a few months until any updates, but the turning point for Ukraine may begin now. And coming up, as we're almost to our close, we have three cute stories for you. Stick around.
The day that JD was injured, I had woke up to an odd phone call. It was the military calling to tell me that he had stepped on an IED.
The day I got injured, she got wounded as well. And the veterans wouldn't be the men that we are and the women that we are today if it wasn't for our better half helping us every direction we go.
Find the nonprofits that support veterans. Offer your time if you don't have the financial resources to offer. There's always a way to help.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
Many medicines used to treat colds and flu contain acetaminophen, a pain reliever and fever reducer found in hundreds of over-the-counter and prescription medicines. But taking too much or more than one medication containing acetaminophen per day can damage your liver. So always read the label and don't take acetaminophen if you drink 3 or more alcoholic drinks every day. To learn more, visit fda.gov/OTC pain info. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Food and Drug Administration.
Making is in essence telling a story. Every time I make something, I'm telling a story. When a kid gets their hands on the world and learns that they can make their fantasy play, that they can make their reality, that's power. As far as I'm concerned, everyone should feel that kind of power. So if there's something that interests you, go figure out how to do it. Go tell your own story. There it is. I want to know why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
Everybody can make something, because I think everyone has a spark of creativity, and the reason that I have to keep making is because I don't think my life would be as fulfilling without it. If you make things yourself, that means you're not cowering in fear. You're out there taking chances. That, I think, is my way of saying I love you to the world. All right, now I want to hear why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
It may be spring, but with snowfall gracing central Indiana over the last week, it only seems fitting to talk about the Christmas season the police department in Cumberland, Rhode Island, found themselves in rather a unique manhunt.
Cumberland, Rhode Island Police Chief Matt Benson was surprised when a package arrived just after Christmas. Inside, a letter from the 10-year-old telling them she took a sample of a cookie and carrots she left for Santa and the reindeer and was wondering if they could take a sample of the DNA and see if Santa's real.
It's an incredible first, and we're excited. Put together an evidence packet and sent it to the state forensic unit. We want to foster her curiosity and her investigative skills.
Her name was redacted by police because they hadn't reached out to the family yet, and the investigation is ongoing.
A surveillance image of clearly a reindeer in that vicinity that night. We do have information of an individual that was observed in the area matching the description of what people would consider would be Santa Claus. We've tracked that individual down, and we're hoping to interview him maybe this week or next.
Just then, a hit on social media from the girl's mom, thanking the Cumberland police for picking up the case.
Doing our own investigative work, we tracked down the family, called the mom. She said, "Come on over."
She's always a little bit skeptical and looking for the facts.
Meet budding detective Scarlett D'Amato, who has her own lab of sorts at home.
I watch crime shows, and I thought it was cool to be a detective.
4th grade and 10 years old, too early to be thinking about a career? Yeah.
The open case is being pursued by Cumberland police that promise to get to the bottom of the mystery.
Maybe there was a debate that needs to be settled, but and we'll do our part to believe and keep that dream alive.
What would you like the verdict to be?
That he's real.
We're staying on the case, too. RJ Heim, NBC 10 News.
Well, you're on your way.
What an incredible story from an incredibly curious young girl.
90 is a little up there to be a dad, but not for Mr. Pickles. Mr. Pickles is a radiated tortoise who lives at the Houston Zoo. He's the oldest animal at the zoo. He and his mate, Mrs. Pickles, have been together since their arrival to the zoo in 1996. These cuddly baby reptiles are dill, gherkin, and jalapeno. Even though 90 may not be so old for a tortoise, it surprised the zoo when Mrs. Pickle laid eggs. A quick-thinking worker spotted her laying them as the zoo was closing, and the experts snatched them up. That's probably because eggs probably couldn't hatch in Texas soil since it's so different from the animal's native Madagascar. The baby pickles are important because radiated tortoises are critically endangered. They've been overcollected for the illegal pet trade, and they don't produce many offspring.
If you love the outdoors and don't mind interacting with the occasional bear, then a job may be waiting for you in New Mexico.
The state's Department of Game and Fish posted a job on Facebook that says it's looking for professional bear huggers. The post includes photos showing workers cuddling baby bears. The agency is actually looking to hire conservation officers. And interactions with bears is only one part of the job. The listing says the department is looking for someone who likes to hike in strenuous conditions, has the courage to crawl into a bear den, and will trust coworkers to keep them safe during the process.
The department says the job is guaranteed to bring someone the experience of a lifetime. Those interested have until March 30th to apply.
My name is Kaden Colford.
And I'm Adriana Ojeda. Thank you for tuning in.